channel. My name is Sydney Morgan. If you are new here, make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you like it and you hit the subscribe button. The case that I have for you today is about a woman, and her name was Nicole VanderHeyden. Nicole lived with her boyfriend Doug Dietrich in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Go Packers. I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into the story. Nikki and Doug lived together. They were dating. They had a 6-month-old son together, and they decided that they really just needed a night out. If you're a parent, I'm a parent. We all know how that goes, especially when they're like technically still in like that baby newborn stage. You want out of the house. You got to have your breaks. That's what they were doing. But when they went out with Doug's friends to a place called the Sardine Can, and they drank way too much. They were wasted. I get it. I've been there. Like a lot. Not a lot to where it's a bad thing, but I've been there. So they're at the Sardine Can, they're hanging out, they're having drinks. It was like a big bar, but like a small concert venue. And there was a band there that night called the Steel Panthers that were performing. So they were having fun, getting loaded, and everybody except for Doug decided that they wanted to leave the bar. They wanted to go to a different bar called the Watering Hole. But on their way out, Doug decided that he was going to stay for a few minutes. Now, this made Nikki feel really weird about the whole situation. Like, she didn't know if he was staying behind to talk to another woman or what the hell he was doing, but she didn't like it. I don't blame her. So Nikki and Doug's friends, they arrive at the Watering Hole, and they have a few more drinks. They all go out on the back patio, and Nikki the whole time was texting Doug, and she was getting really frustrated because she had no idea why he stayed behind. Nikki gets super frustrated, and as they're on the patio, she decides, screw this, I'm leaving. So she goes to walk out the back gate that's on the patio, and Doug's one friend comes up and he's like, hey, no, Doug should be here anytime. Don't leave. Like, it's okay. We'll have fun. And she wanted nothing to do with it. She's like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm going to go do my own thing. The next morning, there were a few men who were riding their bicycles along the side of a road, and to their side, there was a farming field. They glance over, they look in the farming field, and they see a body. This body had over 200 wounds on it. Couldn't tell if it was male or female. It had been, whoever that was, had been beaten so badly that they couldn't even identify the sex of the body. So police go out and they're checking out the crime scene, and it is a woman, but this woman has long blonde hair, no facial features left. She is brutalized. And the only thing that she is wearing is a pair of pink socks, and she also had one of them like club bracelets, the pink ones that say that you're at a venue, so if you leave you can come back. She was wearing one of those. So about 3 hours after these bicyclists call 911 to notify that there's a body here, police are already at the scene. Dispatch gets another call 3 hours later from Doug. Doug is saying, hey, I don't really know how to go about this, but my girlfriend and I went out last night. She didn't come home. I figured she maybe left with another man. I don't know what to do. Right off the bat, they kind of connect the two situations. Okay, we have a missing blonde-haired woman, and we have a body of a blonde-haired woman. And obviously, police always assume that it is the significant other, because I think the statistics say that like 90% of the time it is the significant other. So they have, they have reason to go toward him. So they go to Doug and Nikki's house, and they sit down to talk to Doug, and they have, their body cams, whatever. What are all of your guys' movements through the night? What did you do? Where did you go? So he's telling them, and then they say, okay, what time did you get home? So between the time that Nikki went missing and the time that Doug got home, there's about an hour gap. So police really start focusing on the time that you left from where you were at with Nikki and the time you got home. And he has nothing. He has nothing to say. He has no idea, no recollection. He doesn't know. So he has no alibi. And the police are super confused. They're like, why in the hell would you wait so long to call police and report your girlfriend missing? And they actually asked Doug, like, why did you wait so long? And that's when he told him he thought maybe she ran off with another guy, and he was just super upset. So when he was talking about his movements throughout the night, he said that the most he did was like he was super sick to his stomach, so he either went to the bathroom or was taking care of their 6-month-old son, whatever. So he's claiming that he really didn't move around a whole lot, right? But because he was one of the last people to see Nikki alive, they arrest him and they get a search warrant for his house. Now they search the house. In the garage, they find a pair of Jordans. When they found Nikki's body, she had this weird shoe print on her back, and it resembled the mark of a Jordan. They find Doug's Jordans in the garage, and they had blood splatter on them. Then they look in Nikki's car, which is also inside of the garage, and they find blood in that car as well. So he's arrested. He's out of there. He's in cuffs. They're taking him down to the station to put his ass in interrogation. In interrogation, police decide to tell Doug that they found a body of a woman who matches Nikki's description. And he's like, what do you mean? They said, well, height, blonde hair. We believe we found Nikki, and she's no longer alive. So Doug breaks down, and he starts crying and is super hysterical for like 30 minutes. Then the 911 dispatch gets a call from a few joggers in his neighborhood saying that they found blood spatter all over the road. And this blood spatter's like almost right outside of Doug and Nikki's house. And they were able to identify the fact that that body that they found was Nikki's. So now police have Nikki's friends and family coming in, and they're saying, yeah, she was recently complaining that Doug was getting abusive. He was drinking a lot, doing a lot of cocaine. And then they have Doug's ex who came in and started talking to police, and she verified he was an alcoholic. He was a drunk. He was not a fantastic guy. Then they bring in one of Doug's friends that they were all with that night, and he says nothing. He won't talk to them. He won't give them an alibi. He won't say what he was doing. He's not defending him. He's not nothing. So now little Doug, he's looking even more freaking suspicious. With all this evidence, the multiple different accounts of the blood by the house, in the garage, in the car, he goes to trial. Doug's in trial because they believe that he maybe they were in the garage or in the driveway, got into an argument, and it got physical. And so they're thinking that Doug murdered her because they were drunk and angry. But in trial, those blood results come back, and they find out that the blood on the pair of Jordans is turkey blood because he went turkey hunting a week before Nikki's murder happened. Then they find out that the blood in her car was actually her daughter's. They did, however, find out that the blood that was like in the area of their home that was on the road that the joggers found, that was Nikki's blood. So unfortunately, the only evidence that they had was that blood evidence, and it all came back that it wasn't Doug. So they had to declare a mistrial. He was let go. So 2 months go by, and they have nothing. They've got nothing. And all of a sudden, there was DNA on the socks that Nikki was wearing that night that came back to a man named George that lived in Virginia. So they do a little digging into George, and they find out that George is on probation. George isn't even supposed to leave the state of Virginia. Well, they did a little searching in the Green Bay area of his name, and they did come up with something. George was actually staying with a guy that he met on a job site in Virginia. He was staying with this guy in Green Bay with a guy and his wife. Well, the night that Nikki was murdered, George had borrowed that couple's car. That car was later found abandoned, and the passenger seat was burnt because it was lit on fire. So they go talk to this couple. They're like, hey, who the hell's George? What's going on with this car situation? They had nothing but nice things to say about George. They said he was nice, sweet, kind, funny, a ladies' man. He was also like 6'8", big guy. So police are starting to look at it as like, okay, so George's DNA is on her socks. He is now placed in Green Bay, Wisconsin, the night of her murder. Like, we gotta go talk to this guy. They go and they show up at George's door, and he's actually standing on the front porch. So they talk to him and they say, hey, what do you know about Nicole VanderHeyden? He says nothing. He has nothing on the whole night. He will not talk to police. So obviously, DNA, looking super sketchy, won't talk. They arrest him. The only thing that George was willing to do to help this investigation was give up his phone. So the police get his phone and they look at the GPS tracker on his phone. They find out that he was there. He was placed by his GPS in front of Nikki's house, and then shortly after goes out to the dump site. So boom, you're looking really, really, really crappy. Like, that looks terrible. And George is put on trial for the murder of Nikki because he was there. He was at both sites. You're going down for this, buddy. The first chance that George got to where he was put on the stand, he dropped the bombshell. He said, yes, I was there. Yes, I was with Nikki. And when they asked, do you know who did this crime? Was it you? He said, it wasn't me. It was Doug. So everybody's like, wait. What? How are you the one with her? But it was Doug. So George claims that he was at his regular bar. Nikki, pretty intoxicated, stumbles into the bar. They start talking, having a good conversation, and she asks him for the ride home. So he takes her home out front of her house. He claims that they did have consensual sex, but toward the end of that, somebody showed up, a male, with a gun, and he says that it was Doug. He claims, he doesn't know who Doug is, but he claims that Doug showed up with a gun, opened the door, whatever, confronted them, and George says that Doug, the boyfriend, beats her horrendously and then points the gun at George and says, now we're going to drive out to this farming field and we're going to dump her body. And if you don't, I'm going to shoot you in the face a bunch. So George claims that they went out there and he disposed of Nikki's body. So that explains his GPS coordinates on his phone, right? He was out front of Nikki's house. All that blood was out there. Then he drives out to the farming field and dumps her body. Makes sense, right? But wait. No. The prosecutors are trying to come up with anything that they can evidence-wise to figure out who in the hell it was. They're both blaming each other. It's a mess. So they go back to the body cam footage of the police, and they're watching it, and they notice on his wrist, on Doug's wrist, he's got a Fitbit. And now a Fitbit is not a GPS tracker, but it will track how many steps you have taken. Once they get into the information to that Fitbit, they find out that Doug never took more than like 15-20 steps at different times of the night. So that kind of lines up with like what Doug's saying rather than what George is saying. If Doug found them fooling around in the car and then went with them to go make George drop the body in that farming field, that Fitbit would have shown that. It would have been tons of steps, right? It would have been a lot of different traveling to and from, whatever. It didn't show that at all. It only showed a few steps here and there throughout the night, which corroborates with Doug's story that the only time he got up was to go to the bathroom because he was hungover, feeling gross, or to take care of the baby. And then they look a little bit into George's social media. George, the day after, which would have been just a few hours after Nikki's death, was posting photos online of him fishing on a boat with his hands up holding a fish, and his arms had all kinds of defense wounds, scratch marks, whatever. But he had a big ass smile on his face. So, jury goes into deliberations and they do come back and they decided that George was the one who was guilty of this murder. And when it was time for the judge to take over and start talking, he laid into George's ass. He's like, "How dare you go on this awesome fishing trip hours after you murder this poor girl for no reason and have fun? Your smile was ridiculous. Like it was not a good time to like post photos of having fun." And in my opinion, if you look at all of the evidence, the time frames, the Fitbit, the GPS, I think George was definitely guilty. So George was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Awesome, because he looks really guilty. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. If you liked it, make sure you give me a thumbs up. You subscribe to my channel to make sure you know when I'm posting new videos. Come have some fun with me. Come chat with me. Let's do it. I post multiple times a week. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have an awesome freaking day, and I'll see you later.